Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. Maybe we had too much hope for the 4680 batteries, the dream battery that was going to save the world. Yes, the transition to a global electric fleet. In reality, this was the biggest takeaway from the entire presentation that was Battery Day. The fact that batteries could now be produced in 1/10 the footprint. Of course, there were other major advances in improving efficiencies whilst also reducing costs, thus making the electric vehicle more affordable, but it was moot if not scalable. But the dry battery electrode process, this was the reason Tesla acquired Maxwell Technologies. This changed everything. Before that, with the old wet slurry technique, aside from it not being particularly great for the environment, well, it just wasn't going to be practical. To give you an idea, the most state-of-the-art battery factory with the previous processes would have been Giga Nevada. I'm pretty sure the 2170 batteries are still the most energy dense out of all other batteries used in vehicles. Now, Giga Nevada was only ever 1/3 complete. If it was fully complete, it would have become the largest building in the world by footprint, and Tesla think they could have eventually got 150 gigawatt hours from that factory. The same Tesla that is aiming for 3 terawatt hours of battery production before 2030, which would have required 20 of the world's largest buildings. But due to the 4680 manufacturing process, now Tesla can make that many batteries in just 2 of these buildings instead. Of course, they don't need to be anywhere near that big now either, and are far more compact due to so many processes being removed, and instead they can be built locally next to the car factories. Hence why this new 4680 battery is such a big deal. Tesla had just shown us that not only electric car could be affordable, we were just also told it was scalable enough to eventually replace the entire global fleet of ICE cars. We were just told we could have an electric future. Vehicles free of burning fossil fuels, no more dependence on oil, centralized power, extractive oil economies, dictators controlling black gold. We'd just been given a glimpse into a potential clean air future of our planet. I felt I was prepared for anything at Battery Day. I'd put my mind in prepare to be blown away mode. It was an uncanny feeling. I knew we were on the precipice of something huge, something world-changing, but this was not a presentation for shareholders. This was not meant to be a sneak peek into the future of the company and the potential valuation. No, this was just a recruitment day. You often hear me say batteries are the major constraint for Tesla, but it's not the actual bottleneck when you dive deeper. If batteries are the constraint, then hey, I have a really genius idea. Build more batteries. Right, sure, but I think it is difficult for people to get their heads around just the sheer quantity of batteries that are required. It's literally unfathomable. It's too big to comprehend. When you start to realize that, then you start to get some idea of how many batteries we need. So saying just make more batteries, well, guess what? Perhaps Tesla are doing everything they can possible to make more batteries. This new process had just reduced the size of the factory required by an enormous amount. In addition to that, when you see the chemistry improvements Tesla were making, well, the people who did understand what Tesla had achieved, well, they were very excited indeed. The people this presentation was targeted at, the engineers and scientists that want to work on the best technologies. Hence Tesla explaining the advances in technology rather than giving you the shareholder answers of, we're going to make a lot more cars for a lot less money and the profits will be as unfathomable as the number of batteries we will make. The bottleneck to make more batteries are these engineers. Tesla wants to hire all the engineers they can in order to make as many batteries as physically possible. That's why Tesla does these presentations. Same for AI Day. Most investors really don't seem to understand what Tesla is really telling you, but the hardcore battery and AI nerds, they do. However, they probably can't read a financial sheet so well and may not understand the economic impact of such a battery. They just love the science. It is when you combine the two, you realize just what this could potentially mean for the financials of the company. Of course, it went right over Wall Street's head. I mean, they still have auto analysts analyzing this company. This required a battery technician or engineer to explain the true impact. How can someone who understands ICE engines have any grasp of this? The main thing Wall Street wanted to hear was a 1,000,000-mile battery, which was not literally mentioned, so the stock actually went down. Now, 1.5 years later, we look like we are finally nearing the launch of this coveted battery. The tabless design was also important, along with cylindrical form factor. The tabless design was required for the thermal management, as otherwise the 4680 batteries were too big for the atoms to pass through and would have created too much heat. The tabless design resolved this. But not only that, being tabless also meant that there would be a significantly faster production time, as it would be seamless, rather than having to stop and start continually as you do with tabs. We needed low-cost batteries and to be made in factories that wouldn't take decades to be built, but also needed the production line to run as fast as possible to make enough in a reasonable time. Cylindrical and tabless design greatly improved production speeds. Therefore, as for these new vehicles coming out of Texas that we hoped would be 4680, well, it isn't looking likely. The EPA efficiencies are simply too low. It doesn't add up. Even if the 4680 may take years to develop to the level we were told on battery day, there are still some instant improvements that would be felt. The structural battery pack to improve range by 14%, and the actual 4680 cell design using a lower surface area to volume ratio, thus reducing the amount of steel required for the casing compared to smaller batteries. And this was managed with tabless batteries for thermal management. It was pure genius and resulted in a further 16% range increase again. So even if the chemistry in 4680s now were just at the same stage as 2170, then we would have felt physics from the other changes due to the weight savings of these techniques. Therefore, we can hopefully rule out 4680 batteries. I say hopefully as if it was 4680, it would mean the energy density is worse than 2170, not the direction we want to go. I think I'm sad to say that the 4680 production has perhaps not gone as well as we hoped. Only 1 million cells produced by January, and supposedly perhaps another million cells in March. We're only talking enough batteries for a few thousand vehicles. If Texas is about to open, then there simply aren't enough 4680 batteries available for any serious production. 4680 was a massive breakthrough, but just because it was possible didn't mean it was easy. It has obviously been a very trying task, much harder than Elon thought. He said it's hard to judge when dealing with exponentials. Elon expected 100 gigawatt hours of 4680 batteries this year, but we're barely at 100 megawatt hours. This is a huge discrepancy. Obviously, this process is a lot harder than we thought, which instantly probably means that this process is going to be proprietary to Tesla for a very long time. But Tesla have achieved it. They have produced 1 million of these cells, which was possibly a major breakthrough for them. Remember, the Kato Rd facility or pilot test line for 4680 is a lot smaller than Texas. We're comparing a 10 gigawatt hour a year facility with potentially a 250 gigawatt hour a year facility. Therefore, Kato Rd's objective isn't necessarily to produce as many batteries as possible. It should be more in line with doing whatever it takes to get the Texas facility running as fast as possible. It's a test site to get Texas producing batteries at as high a yield as possible, as fast as possible. Oh right, the yields. Now, we were seeing some really high yields come out of this test site, which was a good sign. So, is this all moot? Does it matter that the 4680 batteries aren't at a decent production capacity at Kato Rd yet? It's relatively small in the scheme of things. It's all about this big 4680 factory in Texas. Now, I understand a lot of you don't seem to care that much about the 4680 battery production, but Tesla have bet the future of this company on the ability to ramp up battery production, which comes from 4680 manufacturing processes. Yes, we have LFP as a backup too, and that will likely be enough to create enough batteries for Tesla to still be a highly profitable car company. But LFP has the same issues with the battery manufacturing process as 2170. It isn't going to be feasible to replace the global fleet. Right now, we're at the precipice of Tesla's success. Can they or can't they achieve these battery day techniques? It still has yet to be seen. But Tesla are acting as if they can. They're doubling down on their 4680 production lines. The one in Texas is huge and seems to be doing stuff already. It looks like Tesla do believe the 4680 is possible. But in my opinion, what this battery production line really does is decide the fate as to the electric future of the world. From there, we do hope that we can adopt these manufacturing techniques and replicate and improve them into an LFP battery for the battery that will make everything that much more affordable and abundant. There is a lot riding on this. Perhaps why I'm covering it in such detail. This is why I was saying all last year, it's all about keeping an eye on what's happening with the 4680 battery, as it is the biggest determinant as to the future of this company, and we're about to get the most information about them we've had since Battery Day. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.